Hello everyone, my name is Peter Schaknat. I'm the Managing Director of Schaknat Electronic GmbH, and today we're optimizing a Scania 144-530. We have a beautiful Scania 144 here. You can see it on the new test bench, a little bonneted Scania, just like the one I have at home. I'm really thrilled that it worked out today. The truck belongs to the company Schutte, a larger freight forwarding company here in the region, in Emsland Kustexpedition. A truly beautiful vehicle. The truck has about 900,000 kilometers on it, but as you can see, it looks like it just came out of the showroom. Just briefly about the truck, it's a 144. 530 V8. These were the last 14-liter engines, actually 14.2-liter engines. After that came the 164s, meaning the 16-liter PDI engines. What I always really liked about the 14-liter engines was the sound, because the engine has a very distinctive sound, and we'll hear that in the video as well. So 144 means 14 liters, 4 series with 530 horsepower. Back then, the engines originally had 2,300 Newton meters of torque. I'm curious to see what the actual mileage is. Today we're going to do an engine and transmission optimization. You can't optimize the transmission, it's a manual, so the only thing I can optimize is myself. So we'll be optimizing the engine. Then let's take a look at what its initial output is. What's pretty funny about this car, as you can see, is that I'm a bit of a Mercedes fan myself. Mercedes Star. It even has a Scania emblem here, a Scania Griffin on the front. So it's really cool, a very nicely done up car. Let's just walk around it quickly and get a few impressions of the car. You can see it's completely paneled in the back here. It was also in use for quite a long time. I spoke with the customer and it was still in operation for a relatively long period. It was also used for refrigerated transport, but as you can see, it's really in immaculate condition. All the frame covers at the back, a bit in the Dutch style with the lights. So really nicely done. All right, that's about it for this topic. I'll take a look at the basic performance. These are the first EDC control units. You still have to solder those. So what we'll do is desolder the EEPROM. We'll reprogram it. I've already shown that in another video. We won't go into detail about that today, otherwise the video would be too long. So let's take a look at the initial measurement. Matthias and Johannes are going to unstrap the car. Then we'll do the initial measurement, and after that we'll see each other at the monitor. Let's start the measurement. As you can see from the inside, the car is really nicely set up. At the back, the old V8 logo, it's really been kept in perfect condition. So let's drive up. As you can see here again, my Hauber has the same setup. Here at the Brüstein we have a lot of resistance, which is why we can start off in a higher gear even with a large group. Basically in 4th gear, let's do that now. Always shift into the gears slowly. Driving a manual is a lot of fun. Well, that is just the way that it is. I'm actually a pretty big car fan and a complete and total fan of automatic transmissions. But in a truck, a manual transmission is really awesome. Now you can basically see a 3-speed gearbox. Alright then, let's take a look and see if everyone has actually gone. Now we're measuring the gear directly once again. This is basically a 6x2 configuration, which means there are 6 half gears divided into both large and small groups. We're measuring the 11th gear again, which is essentially the 6th one in the small group. Oh, you can see that here. You can also split that down. Maybe I can show you that. This here, up and down. This up and down here is the group selector. Here on the side where my finger is, you might hear a clicking sound. If you can hear that sound, those are the half gear splitting. We are in 6th gear on the small side, so that puts us in 11th gear. Then I'll match my RPM again to 1000 revolutions. As you can plainly see, these older models are in fact equipped with pretty short rear axles. Now let's go ahead and accelerate it once again. At 90 and 11th gear, we are at approximately 2000 revolutions per minute. If you accelerate the component fully, you will see 2000 revolutions at 90 kilometers per hour. That is already a pretty short gear ratio, but well, that is simply how it used to be in the past. We can also see the green RPM range. That's from 1200 to 1700. Today, on average, the green RPM ranges are from 900 to 1300. Alright, then let's start the first measurement. It's the same as before. We'll brake from the bottom again, measure all the way from the bottom to the top, and then let it coast. As you know, by accelerating quickly we measure the torque, and by coasting we get the power loss. So I'd say you can also hear the sound of the engine. I have to speak a bit louder. Then let's start the first measurement. We'll keep the engine below 1,200. First of all, you can clearly hear how the turbocharger begins to spool up and build pressure. After that, we will start the actual measurement. Now, when the engine speed is at just under 2,000 revolutions per minute, you proceed to disengage the clutch. If you hear that specific sound, then you know it is working exactly as it should. So what is special about the turbocharger when you disengage the clutch on a 14-liter engine? That's the whistling sound. I think that's really awesome. It sounds absolutely brutal in the hall. I'll let Johannes do another measurement because we need to listen to it from outside. Certainly the hall, without a doubt, changes the sound quite significantly. However, it already sounds incredibly impressive during the measurement. All right, I'll do 1 or 2 more reference measurements, and then I'd say we'll see each other at the monitor. We've now done the initial measurement, and it was a lot of fun. We did one measurement with a closed flap. Then the customer showed me that he has an open flap. We'll see that in the video as well. That was a really awesome sound. Now let's take a quick look at the measurement together. You can see it here again. At the bottom, from 800 to 2,000 revolutions, we have the RPM. And here on the right, we can see the torque. And on the left, we see the horsepower axis. The curve going upwards here is the horsepower. So as you can see, it is rising upwards. And you can see the torque here as the RPM increases. The torque basically drops as well. As I mentioned to you, the input power is specified at 530 horsepower and 2,300 Newton meters. The car has almost 1 million kilometers on it. As you can see, we have 531.4 horsepower and 2,279 Newton meters of torque. That is absolutely perfect. So I really have to say, most of the time I tend to measure the cars a bit lower, although for the 14-liter engines, actually we haven't measured that many of the 530s yet, mostly just the 164 Scanias. Those tend to come in a bit lower, but this is truly a perfect result. So for that mileage, the engine is really in immaculate condition. The customer said he wants to do something good for the car because it can help save fuel, as you can see down here. That's a bit of the characteristic of this engine. You can see it reaches its maximum torque just below 1,300 RPM, from 1,250 to 1,300, and then it holds it for quite a while, and then it starts to drop off around 1,600, 1,700 RPM. This particular area up front here, where we're now trying to get significantly more power, is naturally a bit more limited by the turbocharger's response, because the turbocharger has a certain amount of mechanical inertia and it takes a few complete revolutions for it to reach its operational speed and achieve its designed efficiency up here. In the past, engines were developed so that they produced their torque and peak power at higher revs. Today's engines already reach their maximum torque in this range. But now we'll also try, and this is a bonus as it saves fuel, to get the torque to come in earlier, which also allows for a more relaxed driving style without frequent shifting. All right, then I'd say let's go ahead and optimize now. We've already shown a video about the control units, how the whole thing, desoldering the e-brake, what gets reprogrammed. I'm not going to show that in this video. Then we'll do the baseline measurement again right away, and I'd say we'll see each other at the monitor. We've now done the baseline measurement. I also have the customer with me now, Dennis. Dennis Schutter himself, he's the junior boss. Dennis, I'll quickly show you the diagram we made. I'll also briefly explain a little something about it. He himself said, we have the RPM axis located down here, the torque axis is right here, and the horsepower axis is over here. He himself said that the car is a bit weak at low revs. What was noticed, there was the request to see if that could be improved. You can see here, this is your original torque curve. Here you have 531 horsepower and 2,279 Newton meters of torque. And as I already mentioned, I'll try to improve the car up front here. You can see here where previously it reached its maximum torque at around 250. Now it achieves it almost 100 or 150 revolutions earlier. We now have a maximum increase to almost 2,700 Newton meters and 621 horsepower. From experience, I know that when we used to do this, it was actually a healthy mix. Back then, the cars really didn't have any problems. You know yourself, the exhaust manifold gaskets often have issues on long mountain drives. That's a common problem, which is why people often enrich the mixture a bit so that the fuel acts as a lubricant. Too much fuel, though, makes it hot. But you still always try to enrich it a bit at the lower end so that the manifolds last longer. That's what we did in this case as well. So you can see a slight cloud in the video when you do that. That's actually something positive for the engine. Plus, it's a manual transmission. That's why I always say I can't optimize the gearbox, so I have to optimize it myself. So now go ahead and really test what this truck can do. See if you are able to get into those lower revolutions per minute. But don't forget, low revs and low load are economical. So don't try to drive up a hill at 1000 RPM. That's nonsense. In that case, definitely shift down a gear. But if you're on level ground and you notice that even at full weight, it manages somewhere around 1000 or 900 RPM with just a little pressure on the gas pedal, then you can go ahead and drive like that, because that's what makes you fuel efficient. Let me say up front, with the models that customers have always confirmed to me, you can easily save between 4 and 5 liters of fuel. You can drive this one around. Much better in the range between 1000 and 1300 RPM down here. Of course, you can drive much better now in that range. What I mean with the load is that at low revs, the engines don't have perfect cooling because the water pumps also run based on RPM, so you need to be a bit careful there. But that's why I say feel free to report back in the next few weeks if you're satisfied with your trips. As I said, I think the result is great. As I said, it had an excellent initial measurement, so that's important for you as a customer as well. Also, to know that the engine is 100% in order. If I measure 531 horsepower here, that's an indication that everything is fine. And as I said, really, once again, big compliments. Truly a great car. So I just wanted to thank you again. I wish you lots of fun with the car and let me hear from you. So all the best to you. Ciao. Bye. We've reached the end of our video on the engine and transmission optimization of the 144 Scania 530. I really had a great time doing this. What's also awesome is that for our first video at the new location in Sögel, we have a bonneted truck. You know yourselves, I also have a bonneted truck. I think that's really cool too. You heard the 14-liter engines in the sound and the tone. They're really awesome engines, especially when you hear that whistling. So honestly, it was a lot of fun. If you're interested in the topic, feel free to check out our website at www.schaknat.de. If you have any questions or anything, just send us a message on WhatsApp or give us a call. Or feel free to send an email to sögel.schaknat.de. So let me just say thank you very much for watching. Take care. See you next time. Ciao.